welcome to Turn the Page, the official podcast of the Syosset Public Library.
Hi, this is Syosset Library's Turn the Page podcast. I am your host, Jessica, and I am here with the author of a super, super fun book called Little Miss Petty. I have a lot of thoughts, but I would like to first
Sure.
introduce, or rather invite the author to introduce herself, Sally Kilpatrick. Thank you so much for coming. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and
Sure.
tell us a little bit about Little Miss Petty and where the idea for it came from?
Will do. I am a Tennessean who married a Georgia boy, spent some quality time in Marietta, which explains why the setting for Little Miss Petty is in fact Marietta. And I've written for a long time. I took a little break and taught Spanish for a while because that's what you do with an English major. And this is my eighth book. I'd say the idea for this one came from something that I say to my husband frequently, which is I will look at him and I'll be like, karma does not work fast enough for me. And he'll say, well, first of all, that's not how karma works. But second of all, you don't know. But yeah, it started there and I got to thinking, now what if one could perhaps get revenge? Maybe let's keep it, humanitarian. Let's focus on poetic justice, no bodily harm, no property damage, just a little something something so that the bad guy doesn't win, basically. So that was kind of the start. And I always start with or almost always start with a what if question, which is what if there was someone who could get paid for helping other people get poetic justice?
And I like that idea a lot. I think so it opens up with like the main character kind of sort of starting out with like her first act of pettiness, which is very, very funny. And I don't want to tell anybody what it is because you should read it. But it's really good. And it kind of like made me think about, like certain things that I'm like, oh yeah, like, I could think about times in my life where I kind of did that in a way. But I don't want to say anything on here because I do not want to incriminate
Sure, sure, sure.
myself.
I'll probably spoil it myself before all's said and done, but I'll try not to. I'll do my absolute best.
But yeah, no, so it's about Stella, who she is the titular Little Miss Petty, and she is a private investigator.
Mhm. Yes.
And at the same time, she is dating somebody, and it does not work out in a way that is kind of humiliating for poor Stella. And lo and behold, you find her months later in a bar with other women, and the Little Miss Petty business begins. And you have like a really fun cast of characters. Your dialogue is super, super witty and delightful.
Thank you.
The story is a lot of fun. I just was like, it was like a creamsicle on a hot day, you know?
And that's kind of the goal. I think if I got too serious, the book would become a slog. So I intentionally kept it light because sometimes we just need a palate cleanser. We need something to give us hope in the world. That's where I am a lot right now is let's see the good guys win. That's the goal.
So when it comes to just Stella and, and like just the scenarios that you came up with,
Mhm.
like, did you kind of drop yourself into the story? and find all of these characters together. Like, I mean, like, I think there's so much, there's the poetic justice of the karma, but then there's just like these situations. For instance, the woman who calls herself, who we think calls herself Havisham, like you're like, okay, this is a nod to Miss Havisham
Mhm.
in Great Expectations, but there's more to that too. And like, just like the things that happen were just so funny and unexpected and enjoyable. I mean, I can tell you had a lot of fun writing this book.
I did. I did have a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun researching, which I always do. Even when it's a contemporary, you got to do a lot of research. And it's dedicated to my youngest child because they were helping me come up with forms of revenge, if you will. And they have been known to say, I'm not as mean as I could be, and I need more people to appreciate that. And so they really helped me find some of those. We scoured Reddit, we scoured BuzzFeed for the pettiest things people have ever done, and then kind of looked to see if any of those could be incorporated into the story itself. Sometimes, sometimes the story told me exactly what it wanted because if I start with a what if question, the next place you go is your characters. And inevitably, I will have plans for them and they will have plans for themselves. So we have to adjust. Conditions on the ground change, if you will.
I really felt like I was there with Stella or Stark, because that's her last name.
Mhm.
And a lot of people are actually referred to by their last name with that
Yes,
within this book, which is important for reasons I will also not spoil.
sure.
Yes,
But it,
yeah.
It's also a nod because an author friend of mine, for some reason, a bunch of us started calling each other by our last names. And in fact, at one point, I texted her and I was like, "Hey, Salcedo, can I borrow your last name for this book I'm writing?" And she said yes. So, I mean, I was trying to think of a way to make the plot work. Um, and that kind of fit it. But then when last names came up, I was like, you know what? Let's just give a nod to this group of women that I have worked with, and we would call each other by our last names as well.
Again, it was a lot of fun. I think like, like one thing that I also didn't expect and I liked
Mhm.
was how heartfelt this book was. Like it was, it like at first I was reading like the synopsis and I was, like, okay, so is this like like there was this terrible-ish movie, and I like terrible movies, by the way, so I apologize if this is anybody's guilty favorite, but there was like some movie like way back when, maybe early aughts, late 90s, like called Dirty Deeds, and like I think it was Norm
Mhm.
Macdonald or like somebody like, like they do like these things to kind of get revenge on people. So I'm like,
Oh,
is this going to
okay.
be like the female version of Dirty Deeds? And like it was.
I hadn't seen that one.
Well,
Okay.
I don't, I'm not accusing you of
No,
anything
no, I
because
knew. It
it's,
never ceases to amaze me. If you've ever read Elizabeth Gilbert's Big Magic, she talks about how certain ideas are in the zeitgeist, and that's
yes,
why sometimes you'll read a story and things come. For example, The Giver of Stars and The Bookwoman of Troublesome Creep. She's just saying that things just pop up. But anyway, that
well, it
was
is very interesting
entertaining.
because things do seem to pop up also around the same time. And, I
Hmm.
could get like really into it. I don't know if she talks about like, Jungian thought, which is, like everything exists in this which is like where we get the never ending story from,
Hmm.
like all
Collective
fantastic.
subconscious
Yeah,
in memory
exactly. The
serves.
collective
Yeah,
subconscious.
yeah.
But no, this was nothing. This is my point is like this is nothing like that because there's a real heart to it. Stella has this history of not really being able to be vulnerable.
Mhm.
And vulnerability comes in slowly. And one of the ways it comes in is through a little calico kitten,
Yes.
which I will always appreciate a kitten in my stories.
The cat distribution system will always find you. And in fact, in the course of this interview, it is possible, some would even say probable, that one of my cats also a product of the cat distribution system, will come in here because if I start talking often, she wants to see what I'm up to. We shall see. Maybe she's taking a nap now. She's had a busy morning, so
I mean, cats all have agendas.
right?
We
And
all
they
know
don't share
this.
them. They don't share them.
And if we talk about pettiness, by the way, cats can be really petty,
So petty.
especially calicos.
Oh yes, this is a muted tortoiseshell calico that I have, and I don't even know where muted came from. There's nothing mute about this cat. But yeah, she is, I respect it. I'm definitely a cat person. I like dogs, but I'm definitely a cat person because I'm vibing with that. You see something on the counter and you just want to just knock it right off. That's fair. I get it.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, and again, it just but she was adorable. This kitten who just found Stella when she was at her lowest. And, just like the things that begin to kind of fall into place for her as she's trying to get her life back together financially and emotionally, while, through being petty and these other things, it was just like it was really just nice. And there was a community building, like there is romance in it, but it's not just about the romance. It's also just about like the trust and the friends and being able to just kind of like be with a core group of people who you
Yeah.
vibe with and a cat.
I do. I adore found family stories. And I think this is definitely a found family. I know I had a couple of folks question if they would become friends this quickly, Havisham and Salcedo and Stark. And I said, maybe, maybe not, but it's definitely happened before. There are people. I was signing with an author and we kind of knew each other, but just over the course of, but we didn't really know each other. And we were at a table and we're looking around at what's going on, and we're not like fancy people. So some of these other authors have the elaborate basket situations going on, and ours is just more straightforward, shall we say. Behold our books. And we were like, do you do that? And it was almost like stepbrothers. Did we just become best friends? I think we just became best friends. So, I mean, I think it's possible. I definitely think female friendships become even more important as we get older. Um, and there's a depth of authenticity that we're looking for. That's definitely part of what Stella's going through. She's turning 40. I'm 51, so it's one of those cases where I'm kind of looking backwards. And I think that that's part of your journey is you're becoming your authentic, your truest self. And that means a certain level of vulnerability. And you say vulnerability, and I say Brene Brown. And therefore, we name a cat Brene Brown for reasons. And so that it all kind of came together. That was part of the soup. That was not part of the plan, but that's part of the fleshing out that comes when you write it.
Yeah, no, I got that. And to me, it seems completely natural, especially for women who are a bit older, but even like, younger women. I think the difference is, and it might be different now. I don't know. It has been a bit since I've been in my 20s. But like when I was like entering college and whatever, like you were really socialized to backstab other women. And I was not into the whole like sorority scene, not to
Mhm.
say, because I have friends who did that,
Oh,
not to say
absolutely.
everybody who is does that, but I really feel like, it was expected that if you were going to be in a group of women, like you weren't going to be vulnerable together. Like you were going to be like, we're sisters, we're friends, but you were looking for the
Yes.
next in. And I
I
think there's something to be said for people whose bodies have been kind of lived in for a while and their lives have been lived in for a while and they've been through things at different ages, sitting down together and just kind of like being like, ugh. And then suddenly it's like insta friendship.
exactly. I my mother just modeled a different kind of behavior for me. So many's the time I got burned by that because I am quite likely to overshare when we meet because I don't have that protective instincts that probably would have served me well early in college. Um, and as an only child too, I hung out with a lot of women who were older. like, you're basically your parents' third wheel if you're an only child. So you're a little adult. So I hung out a lot with my parents, with my grandmother, with my aunts, with other folks. So I think that's part of why Salcedo's there. In some ways, Salcedo is me, just sitting there, kind of adding in when she can, but also listening to these older women and maybe gathering a little bit of wisdom along the way.
Because we haven't mentioned him, could we talk a little bit about Malone?
We can always talk about Malone.
Oh.
Anytime you want to talk about Malone, we can get in there.
So all I will really, really say, so Malone is this character who Stella is supposed to really be spying on and kind of
Mhm.
help Karma come his way. But
Exactly.
he's really interesting. And yeah, I again like now I'm like, oh no, wait, I don't want to say anything because
No, we'll
yeah.
talk about a good chunk of this book is, well, to quote Havisham, the patriarchy is a hell of a drug, and a lot of men are getting high on their own stash. So there is, by necessity, a lot of revenge towards men. And Malone is kind of the antidote to that. Malone is saying, here is a version of masculinity that is not toxic. That is who he is.
I will leave it at that. And again, reiterate that this book is super, super fun. It's funny. It's got characters you would want to be friends with. I would want to be friends with. And I would actually like, I would love to see them again. I don't know if you would ever write about them again.
I might. Because one of the things that I thought of when I was writing them was the Thin Man. And so, maybe there's a world in which they go into business together.
Well,
Or they don't go into business together, but, they still work together.
I would love to see that. So check out Little Miss Petty. When is it officially on shelves?
It is official as of last Tuesday.
So run
It's a
and check
week
it
old.
out.
It's just a baby. It's just a week old.
Just check it out. It's a really nice book. And I think people are really going to love it. So once again, this was Jessica with Syosset Libraries Turn the Page podcast. My guest was
Sally Kilpatrick. Thank you so much for having me, and I appreciate your reading my book.
thank you so much for joining. And we are going to close this chapter of Turn the Page.
It's time to close this chapter of Turn the Page. Join us for the next episode.